IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all of these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all of these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning into In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at
HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
All I know is that the English language is very tricky, and you just use the word of being pessimistic. So, and I'm using the word of it being the truth. So I asked a popular talk show host one time before, is there ever a time when the truth shouldn't, is there a position or entity or an initiative where the truth should not lead the conversation? And I asked both of y'all the same thing.
I agree that the truth should definitely lead the conversation, but
you just erased everything that
bitterness
came before that.
And pessimism doesn't serve the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish, because there are a lot of people out here who believe the exact same way that you do, who are walking around angry, who are hollering after police and everybody else, who got their foot on the black man's neck, and they are not accomplishing anything by doing that. And other than living a life full of,
I'm with you. I agree. But there are also a bunch of people selling pimp hope. If you do this,
I'm not
and
trying
you work
to be pimp right
well, no, that's what you're doing.
I ain't never been trying to do that.
That's what we do when we tell people to look for the bright, shiny day. Just keep working. Just keep pushing forward. Just keep doing this, right? And then when their tenure runs free, we stick another one in there, and they doing the same thing. Hey, just keep following me. Now and then went from the grandparents to the children, from the children to the grandchildren, and nothing really has changed. That's why, in my humble opinion, it always takes. It looks like it takes people from outside of the 12 square miles we call Charlottesville to come in and to administer change, because the foot has been on the people that have lived here so long that they don't even know what.
You're making somebody upset right now.
It don't matter. Like I said, the truth is just you don't have to listen to me. This is my humble opinion, and I'm glad that you named it that, Max. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't be wrong. This is just your opinion. Now, if my opinion happens to align with things that people don't want to hear, that's the message. Because now we got to ask, why don't you want to hear it? Truth, pessimistic can be the same thing depending on whose mouth it's coming out of.
Right. Yeah. And so what's the next step for a person whose thought process aligns with yours? What next? What are their next steps?
My thing is, see where you are. Get a piece of paper and a pencil. Do not do it in your head. Do not do it in your cell phone. Get a pencil, not a pen, and a piece of paper, and write down where you are in life, where you want to go, and then look at the initiatives that are coming forth and see what helps you accomplish those goals in real time. Some people soon as they get in office, you can have changes in 30 days. Other people's, yours might not come for 3 years, right? But the fact that is things that you can work on to help build yourself. Our daughter, the situation, she is just graduated as being a lawyer. I mean, finished her law school, right? She had things that took place in her life that she said, it was good that something afflicted me because it made me a stronger person. So just like the Bible, you start learning from a child, right? So a lot of the things that children look at from a plain blanket view is things that we can learn from. When you have somebody who talks like me, who knows what he's trying to say and is strong behind his words, it looks like controversy. But all I'm trying to say is, no, this is really what it is. That's not sugar, that's salt. But
can I give you
absolutely. I'm all ears.
Can I give you a little advice? Because we should be turning the corner on the conversation.
I'm sorry.
But what I'm saying is, like, we can hear you and we can still disagree, but I don't mean we didn't hear you. No, because sometimes like I know you stern and strong in your opinion, just like we are, but it's like sometimes we just agree to disagree. You know what I mean? But we hear you and you hear us. You ain't gonna change everybody.
I'm not even trying to change one person by what I'm saying. I'm answering how I view the world. And if you happen to look at it from a different lens, I don't have a problem with that. If you happen to look at it from the same lens, I don't have a problem with that. That's not my monkey, not my show. I'm just telling you how I see the world. That's all.
I feel you.
And I do understand it. And personally, I don't know. And so I think there are some situations that will absolutely call for a person to view things the same way that you do, right? But I don't think it has to be an either or. I think there's a possibility for people to exist in the and of my point of view and yours.
The gray area. Is that the and?
Sure.
Okay. I'm trying to get to the point because I've messed up a lot in my lifetime, a lot of, here recently. But I want my yes to be yes and my no to be no. So that way I can stand on something that's stable. I have a base. That's just me. I'm not asking y'all to do that. Live in the and, live in the gray. That's fine. If I live a different way, it shouldn't offend you because I want to live this particular way.
Or the contrast too. You got to remember that. It's like the world ain't black and white. Like there's a lot of colors, right? There's a lot of contrast. It's like, to her point of the and, it's like people,
and I think it is black and white.
People from different places, brought up different ways, believe different things, do it different, operate different traditions. Like who's to say we right and they wrong?
No. I'm not even talking about right and wrong. Like this is your truth. Boom. That's it. It don't have to fit nobody else. I think that's where the and the maybe and the should and the could would be. All those confusing terms that we use, like in our native land, in Native Americans, there aren't words that translate as could, should, maybe, would. It either is or it isn't. It's raining or it's not. I don't care if it's thundering. These are the things. Like
you made me think of Eddie Murphy.
This is the problem. If we buy into the and, the maybe, the should, the about to, will be, all those type things prolong the true answer. Because it gives the people that will abuse it the opportunity to keep you on a string.
Got you.
In my humble
loud
opinion.
and clear. So can I?
Go ahead, Max. You either gonna tell me now or later. Go ahead.
We're trying to get to the kids, y'all. Come on, y'all. Come on, hurry up. Y'all go ahead.
You shouldn't ask the question, Charles.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Oh no, I mean, go ahead. Go ahead. Y'all good? I mean, we got 3 hours.
Why you do us like that? That's wrong.
I don't know. We got guests. I don't know if people want to hear us keep talking about this, but
I mean, it will. I mean, one more comment may just lead to another comment. But while I understand and respect Raisa's perspective, I think by and large amongst the Black community, I still call it bull, because you can't tell me that every space we function in it from that mindset. We dance when we need to dance. We stand on 10 toes down when we need to. We yell F it when we need to.
Boots on the ground.
We do that constantly. It's the plight of who we are. And I'm sorry, I don't even see as close as well as we know one another. I don't even see that in the day-to-day with you.
Nah, can't. That's what I'm saying. Though living in what we're talking about has gotten me to the point where sometimes I'm struggling with, do I go left or do I go right? You know what I'm saying? So then,
I mean, that's life.
Right. But just because I'm operating in there does not mean that I need to be there.
Okay. That's the distinction that needed to be said.
Yeah. So thank you for helping me get to that point. If I decide that I want to operate on there, it is not my job to wait till the community as a whole decides to move that way too.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? God always starts with one.
Yeah.
Everything is a spearhead, right? And that's going to be the one that's not popular. Right. The one who really has the first vision is going to be looked upon as crazy, as argumentative, as a problem, right? But like Max said, you may have thrived in this way, but once you start having knowledge of yourself to realize that, okay, there has to be a better version of me, right? I have to lose everything in order to get that based off of the decisions I made to get to this point. And not everybody is willing to do that. So the and, the but, the maybe, the should, I'm trying to erase from my vocabulary because it has put me in a state of survival. And that has become the majority of our norm. And I don't want to live there no more.
I think it was not too many shows ago I was talking about the lady that said, like, we make struggle look cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
We make struggle look good.
Absolutely.
Like that was deep. That still resonates with me.
Yeah, but that's a bad thing. Like that's the N word. The N word was turned into a term of endearment.
Did y'all see Trump make a joke about the N word in that Fox News interview? Talking about I'm talking about the N word, and he says, you know what the N word is, don't you? I'm talking about nuclear. Nuclear. He was trying to be funny.
Yeah, but I mean, he should have a right to, anytime we got our 8, 9, 10, 11, 13-year-old children reciting any cuss word, any woman defaming herself. Like, stop choosing because somebody is a different color that all of a sudden something doesn't apply. We lost that when we started monetizing it. Yes.
But hold on.
That's just my opinion.
But what they got to do with what I said, though?
It do, because he said he made an off-color joke. And we said, man, did you hear what he said? But then go to the grocery store, go to the gas station, and hear people calling each other that in conversation and walk right past. I'm not cool with nobody that's not black saying it. Like if I'm honest,
we're on the same page.
Yeah, 1,000%, right? Like kids from 25 down had friends that they thought was cool that they said, because I'm not cool with that, right?
I tell my kids that.
Yeah, it's like you didn't earn the right to say that, in my opinion. But what I am saying is that even in my generation, it has became to where if you will say it to your brother who needs your help, that needs your support, and then hear somebody else say it and get offended, there's something wrong with that. We're too selective in the battles that we decide we want to fight.
Selective outrage. Chris Rock go deep into that, by the way.
Yeah.
But hey, so we're talking about May 27th town hall, local government addressing that. But that on top of that though, Miss Max, how about I'm gonna do the drop. It's graduation season.
Yay.
So how about we rep?
So
how about we rep the schools? Shout about CHS.
That's right.
Yeah.
Albemarle High School. Now, why did I start naming? I'm getting in trouble. I started naming.
Yeah, you ain't even talking about
Western
home
Albemarle
first.
High School, Monticello. Like at least that's the the immediate listening area, and then y'all know the surrounding counties, and not only that, but then I got to know internationally, Razor, because this thing broadcasting worldwide, baby. Come on. Yeah. But shouts out, give it up for all the graduates for sure. Next phase of your life. Hopefully, Razor didn't scare you. There are some nice people in this world, kids. All right, like so, y'all still go after your dreams, follow your heart.
Absolutely, never give up.
Congratulations! I know, high school. I was talking to someone recently who kept saying over and over again that it's hard enough to much less finish college. It's hard enough just to complete, grade school, to graduate from high school. And so, we recognize, I recognize that was hard work, and it's no small accomplishment. So congratulations to you.
Yeah. I met a young gentleman yesterday who he was looking for a job, and him and I were, having a transaction, and he was like, I dropped out in 10th grade. I'm an IT guy, but nobody wants to hire me because I didn't graduate, right? So it led me in the course of it. Like it was really hurting my heart listening to him, but it led me to parents that want to be more of their children's friends and blame the school system and blame the dad not being there, blame the mom not being there, blame grandma and them not wanting to watch them so you can get a break because you feel stressed, whatever it is, right? You got to never choose being your child in Razor's humble opinion. You can never choose being your child's friend over being their parent. If your child is not unhappy with you, you're doing something wrong.
To the extent of allowing them to do something
that's going to detriment their life, their future and whatnot, because they don't know. They ain't been here long enough, right? They just know that, whatever they choose, whether they feel like the racism is being a play, they feel like they're not gravitating and everybody's smarter than them, whatever their reason is, you never let them give up, because you can set the precedence of that be how they conduct themselves as they get older.
Things get tough.
Yeah. I don't.
You know what you made me think of? Remember when David and Yolanda were in here talking about Beacon? They were talking about how it's also a business incubator where you may get in there and figure out, this ain't for me.
Yeah.
But that journey, right? Like the kids watching their journey and watching, like that I picked up all this knowledge from trying to start this business, and now I can take knowledge that I acquired, and even though that space ain't for me, I now have something I can build off of. But I can just go this other direction.
Absolutely, absolutely. But you got to be in the fight to be able to stand a chance to win.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's life, man. Like that's good. That's deep, because you don't want to become entitled. Like the world got too many entitled people. What I mean by that is that when it comes to, you got people who nowadays, and part of it because so many of us have grew up with luxuries, is that like I always want younger folk to know, graduates and going into adulthood, is that it's like you still got to grind. Yeah. Unfortunately, our kids are now born with technology and like luxuries in their hands, right? The world is in your palm, literally. And so
Charles, what about the other
real struggle?
The other way, though.
I'm gonna get you, but real struggle is hard to see. And so point is, you got a generation, and this is facts. People can comment, call it if you want, but I know from being on hiring processes and hearing stories and everything else, is that you got people who may graduate and think, well, oh shit, I'm gonna get 6 figures now.
Yeah.
But since the beginning of the time, you still got to pay your dues since the beginning of the time. And then sometimes that employment rate look the way that it looks because people don't want to grind. People think that they got to go from bottom to the top. And so we do our kids a disservice when we're not real with them about how life works, how the economy works.
Yeah. And the way that I would also say that to all of our recent graduates and those still, attending school is that you don't want to put yourself in a category where life happens to you. Or other people make decisions for you.
Big facts.
You have to go along because you have no power, no choice, or real say-so because of the circumstances that you may have placed yourself in. So you just kind of got to go with it. And a lot of times people end up trapped in that cycle. Some people find their way out, but a large majority of people end up trapped in that cycle, and then they develop thoughts like what Razor was talking about earlier today.
So I'm in the cycle. That was a shot, Charles. That's all right. I'm gonna get him back.
Where's my shot?
But no, I just that's important to know.
Yeah,
it's important to know because if you're not making choices for yourself, someone else is making them for you.
Absolutely.
And let me clarify. Let me add what I was saying real quick too, because I know we're up against the hour. But that's for if you are looking to go into the workforce too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the grind and the hustle and the bustle. You gotta be with people that's real with you and tell you like the true ins and outs. And I think anything gonna be handed to you, given to you. I wanted to clarify that because we could be in a much better place where we're handing down more wealth and assets and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So that every generation don't got to start from the bottom. You know what I mean? And like shouts out, a couple people that's coming to my mind right now that I know that like even did things of like putting part of their businesses in their kids' names so that the kids' credit is developing earlier, putting insurance policies and whatnot on the kid. You know what I mean? Like stuff that is helping build their credit and stuff, teaching them about business so that college ain't got to be your only route.
Yeah.
There's so many different routes out here. And, like when we get that mindset, like that like power economic mindset, then we could also be a lot better off.
Charles said it pretty. I'm gonna say it to you straight. Thank you, Charles. If you know your kid is struggled in high school and they're not ready to go, do not allow them to run up to like a community college and get these Sallie Mae loans and become in debt, knowing goodness well you had trouble conducting them when they were children. Now you got an adult, and these professors look at them as adult people. If your child is not ready to go and just because he graduated, he feel like school is his next option before he get a job because all his friends are going to school and he don't want to feel left out, or he or she, do not let them put themselves in debt just because they feel like if everybody else going to school, I got to go to school too. Right? I'm not saying sit on your butt. I'm saying look at some other options other than going into debt.
Also pick your school based on the return you're going to get.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying? Because there's some professions that are noble professions, great professions, but hopefully your counselors and your parents are having real conversations with you about don't go to the most expensive school when you studying something that's going to be a minimal salary. Because then you're going to be in debt the rest of your life.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's little things. Little things. Razor, maybe you should open up a mentoring group.
No.
Come on, Razor.
No.
Join the system.
Hey, look, you'd be surprised how much I get asked that. Like, honestly. But the truth of the matter is, I'm still figuring it out at 51 years old.
Hey, bro.
Just like everybody else. Because I've went to different levels. I've seen different things. So while I might have been at level 10 when I hit level 11, that's the beginning of 11 to 20. You understand what I'm saying? It's not like 11 is better. Like once you understand, like some of these things are steps and some are ladders. You have to know which one that you're on.
I feel you. Miss Max, what else are we repping as we go to break here?
Razor had a birthday on the 15th.
What?
Since he gonna throw his age out there.
Oh Lord!
So you must have took that off of Facebook or something because I didn't get the notification.
I didn't put anything about me being my birthday. Nobody celebrated me. Nobody,
Is that why he's so honorary today? Because I ain't telling him happy birthday.
Nah,
I'm sorry, bro. I ain't even know,
It's
bro.
because it's Sunday.
Charge it to my head. Charge it to my head, not my heart, man.
It's a day.
Can you be nicer next hour now? I'm sorry. I apologize for that.
Okay, I'm saying I could be like they said at my grandma's funeral. I could be anywhere you want me to be. You know what I'm saying? So.
All right, with Charles Max Razor, we're going to be right back next hour with none other than FAR, Public Housing Association for Residents of Charlottesville. Remember, Mental Health Awareness Month, also Affordable Housing Month. Be right back. IMHO Talk Show.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
In my humble opinion talk show, it's Charles.
Max.
In the booth, in the building. WVAI 101 Jams is the flagship station. You already know what it is. So tell a friend, because we are in the second hour and we are joined by guests right now. And we are so delighted to have them. Good afternoon to you all.
Hi.
Welcome.
Yes, indeed. We are joined by Sophia and Maya of the from FAR, the Public Housing Association for Residents, and they come to talk to us about FAR Seaville. Miss Max,
that's right.
Let us know about the programs and all the good stuff that is happening there. And so just from the jump, I just learned that Maya was on Community Connection, so some folks may already know this voice and this face, right? No. The more involved and ingrained you can be in the community, the better, right? Right. That's how you build trust, right? So, yeah. So go ahead and formally introduce yourselves for folks who may not be aware of your titles and the work that you guys do.
Yeah, so I'm Sophia. I am an organizer with FAR. And then
I'm Maya Adolphs, and I'm the administrative operations coordinator for FAR. So I handle kind of the behind the scenes, making sure everybody has pencils and make sure the plans kind of go off without a hitch.
She's the glue.
Okay.
But
that's much more flattering,
Yeah.
Say it that way.
But so FAR is an organization that's tenant-led, and we focus on educating and empowering low-income residents to protect and improve their own communities through collective action. So we believe that residents should speak for themselves and lead themselves and organize themselves. So yeah.
Awesome. Maya, anything to add to that?
Yeah, just FAR has been in the community for a couple decades now, but we're in a period of regrowth and kind of reorganizing. So we're really trying to get back out there and let the community know who we are, and kind of get reestablished. We are under new leadership in the last year with Latricia Giles, who is fantastic and is just such a pathfinder in this field. And then we have a bunch of new staff and new people on the board in the last year. So if you've known FAR in the past, we invite you to come get to know us a little bit more, because we are definitely changing and growing, and excited to see how we can continue to help our communities in the growing and changing times of our political climate right now.
Well, I will say that I've learned something new already. We were talking when you came into the studio, and I had always been under the assumption that FAR was umbrellaed under maybe either a CRHA or a local affordable housing organization, but that is not true.
Yes, for all intents and purposes, we are an independent organization. It's a lot of hands in the pot when you come with nonprofit organizations that work with the government, because there's different funding sources and people on different boards, but we are the Public Housing Association of Residents. We serve Charlottesville City public housing residents, and anything that kind of falls under. So most importantly, helping tenants speak for themselves and helping them represent themselves, and not just be another organization or entity that they're having to deal with, but rather somebody who can elevate and increase resident voices, because those are the ones that most need to be heard in our community.
Right.
So I gotta ask. So when it comes to something such as FAR, because when I look at the mission, right, which says to educate and empower low-income residents to protect and improve our communities through collective action. Like, I want to ask, like, what is your individual passion, right? Like, so kind of strip away the title for a second and think about Sophia and Maya saying, what do I want to do with my life, right? Like, what is it about this mission of FAR that struck home with you in the role that you play?
Well, for me, that's community. Community is at the forefront of my mind and passion, and it's represented in everything that I do. I do kind of a lot in my personal and career life. I'm always kind of inspired by a quote by Teddy Roosevelt that says, far and away, the best prize in life is the opportunity to work hard at work worth doing. And personally, I feel that the work that I am able to do most efficiently is just hard work, good old fashioned hard work, and getting down to it. and for me, community building is one of the most important things that we can work hard at, whether it be through something like FAR, something that is really cut and dry, public housing, nonprofit work, or through theaters, which is what my kind of backdoor passion is, and that's what I was on NBC 29 for earlier this week.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it was different. Okay,
yes, so like that's what I mean. Like it's all tied together through my passion for community and working hard at work worth doing, but not necessarily even in the same vein of things. So for me, it's all about community. I'm actually not from Charlottesville. I've lived in Charlottesville for about 10 months now. I'm actually originally from Galveston, Texas, which is a small town island south of Houston. And if anybody knows anything about Galveston, it's a pretty small town, although albeit a little bigger than Charlottesville, but it's a very tight-knit community. And I was raised not by a family, but by a huge community of teachers and adults and everybody kind of interwoven. And so it kind of invested in me a large understanding and appreciation for community, and I want to carry that wherever I go, whether it be through political work or organizing or building community through theater. So theater and music. So
and Sophia, how would you answer
so I would say that I've always had a passion for helping people. Everything that I've done, and I've done a lot of different things in the community sphere, has always been about helping others. And so I agree with Maya. I think community is at the forefront of everything that we do. Community is power. And when we all join together for a cause, I think people are unstoppable. And so for me, my passion lies specifically in Latin American studies and Indigenous studies, so Indigenous rights. So for me, what attracted me to this organization is the opportunity to make significant change and to empower people to become their own leaders, and speak their own voices and speak up for themselves. I've only been at FAR for about a month, but I've really seen some people be transformed by different programs, such as our internship program, which is for adults to learn about community organizing. And they're able to basically gain the skills necessary to become leaders in their own communities.
Gotcha. Okay. Good work. Good work. So we are joined by Sophia and Maya of FAR. And I think we were talking offline, but I want to make sure that the listeners know, and Max, correct me if you did address this while we were on air, but I don't think we were. But when it comes to the acronyms, right? Like, because we talk about this stuff like every week and we still get a little sometimes.
We do too.
Like we go to council and everything. So clarify for the folks, because you are with, at this, aptly titled Charlottesville Public Housing Association of Residents, right? But you are separate, though you work very closely with the Charlottesville Redevelopment and Housing Authority, CRHA.
Yes.
So we have FAR, we have CRHA, and you get mentioned, in the same vein a lot. But it's different operations.
Yeah.
So break that down for us.
So it's like you said, it's a little confusing. CRHA is a government entity. They are the housing authority for Charlottesville, and we are like the loving pain in their side. That's how I like to say
so
it.
You're like an oversight.
Yes, we help with advocacy for the residents. So we don't represent CRHA, we represent the residents. And so if it comes down to it where it's a CRHA issue and we don't like what CRHA is doing in terms of the residents, then they're not going to like us too much. But a lot of times, and I'd say most of the time, CRHA and FAR work very seamlessly together, and we work on a lot of joint initiatives and a lot of projects. But we are in fact separate entities. We are the tenant-led housing organization that we represent our own tenants, and they are the government entity. So it's a little confusing, and we're often mentioned alongside each other, but we are actually separate.
And you serve that same role for other low-income affordable housing organizations in the city, those administering like Section 8, the Section 8 program.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. CRHA is our main one because they have the most property in the city. But yeah, we serve like that in many capacities. Yeah.
Our executive director, Latricia Giles, she likes to say we're like cousins. So if that helps.
And speaking of Latricia, definitely want to shout her out. But like the rest of your team, what's the makeup, for how it operates? Just sort of generalize it. Like what kind of staff sides you're looking at versus the board, and how do they work together for the residents, the staff, and the board?
So staff, we're like I don't know if we were on air, but we were mentioning we are growing. And so in the past year, under Latricia's leadership particularly, we have grown a lot. So presently we have our executive director, and I am our administrative operations coordinator. And then we have a bookkeeper and an admin. And we kind of our admin team, we kind of help things behind the scenes. And two of them are not full-time. And then we have our organizers. We have an organizer, Asia, who's in charge of, she's an organizer, but also is in charge of our youth program. We have Sophia, who is our second newest organizer, technically. We just hired Sophia. And also we have Stacy, who is an organizer who is in charge of our internship program. And then we have Wendy, who is also an organizer, but she is kind of separate as well, because we have a program called Residents for Respectful Research, R3, and that is kind of another arm of FAR. She deals with UVA and researching. It's a very complicated little thing that they've got going on, but they have a steering committee that oversees research in the community and how different research projects can impact Black and Brown communities particularly, but any kind of community that would be under our purview. And so we want to make sure that we're looking at these before people are going out and doing, psychological research or sociological research in community. We want to make sure that they're doing it with residents in mind, things that wouldn't be harmful. So that's a kind of other arm of FAR that is also part of our numbers. And then as far as our board, it's much like a normal nonprofit. We have our advisory board, which is elected within our communities, and we have representatives of each low-income housing community, public housing community, and then also we have some members at large, and they kind of help steer us in what we are doing. The staff supports the efforts of the board, and vice versa. So we have monthly staff meetings monthly board meetings rather, where they are kind of hearing what's going on. They approve how we're moving in the community, and then we have a couple other boards within that kind of in the way that many nonprofits are run, where there's lots and lots of boards and complications in that sort of way. But
And is Miss Joy Johnson still chair?
Miss Joy Johnson, she is the powerhouse. I mean, she
Still
is
on the
a
battlefield.
powerhouse of this community. I could not understate that more. She is amazing, and yes, she is still the biggest one in the room in terms of power at no matter what room she's in. But yes, she is still on our board.
All right. So this is in my humble opinion. Not sure if you all ever listened to this show, but we like to be the mouthpiece for the community, to set the stage for folks to introduce themselves, their businesses, organizations. But generally speaking, this is urban radio. So we want to have on air the conversations that the urban community wants answers for, right?
Amen.
All right. So, and I know with you all doing community work, I'm sure you probably heard it all. You probably have to traverse a lot of different personalities, and you need some woosah moments.
You speak
some
a lot of different languages now.
Some namaste moments. All right. So to keep it 100 with y'all, I see, two young white women, right? You identify as white as far as ethnicity?
Well, you go
first. Okay. Tell me. I want to be correct.
I am Latina. I am originally from Puerto Rico.
Okay.
So I lived there for about 10 years, and then I moved to the States, and then Maya can.
I'm a very, very white passing person of color. I am Asian, actually.
Okay.
Filipino. So
I like that. Very, very white passing person of color. I love that.
It's like I have some of the family background, but I prefer to give the stage to actual people of color. The real blue check verified people of color, in my opinion.
Okay.
But I just happen to have some passion for working in community so I don't like to check card my ethnicity too much.
Right. I got
people, you know what I mean? But
yeah. So and of course, Sophia, that was my point of saying that, is that just by the general appearance and probably first blush, people are going to assume.
Sure.
My whole reason for saying that is because when I look up the makeup of the neighborhood and the neighborhoods and the demographics, and I'm sure some people probably watching, listening today, somebody's going to wonder, how can you really understand me?
Right.
How can you truly help me? So how do you traverse that? What's your rebuttal to when you're faced with people trying to figure you out, question you, what's your background? Why are you here? That kind of thing.
Yeah, no. So even though I'm Latina, I'm white. You know, my race is white, and I have a lot of white privilege. And if you're just seeing me walking down the street, I speak English perfectly. Like, you wouldn't know that it's my second language. You wouldn't doubt anything about me. So I think that for me, it's about understanding your privilege and accepting it, saying it out loud, not being afraid to have those conversations, but also not being the loudest one in the room. I think that the work that we do, it's all about tenants leading themselves, tenants doing the work themselves. I am like a little like buddy to help. I am not here to tell you what to do. I am not here to tell you how to live your life. I'm here because I know a little bit about community organizing, and I want other people to know that as well. So I would say that it's about recognizing your privilege, knowing the space that you're taking up. So when I walk into communities, it's about recognizing that I'm white and these are predominantly Black and brown communities. And they're faced with systemic issues, systemic racism, problem access to housing, access to healthcare, access to education. They're faced with all these issues that I simply don't understand because I am very privileged. I was raised in a middle-class family. But I think it's about knowing the space that you're taking up and just recognizing that I'm not telling you, I don't want to tell anyone what to do. I'm not leading you. I'm not the leader. I want you to be your own leader.
That's great.
Yeah, I second that also. I think that part of what's funny about my job particularly is she's an organizer. I'm actually not. I don't do hardly anything in the community. And I think part of that is because I recognize that my skills lie in admin work. Like, it's something that I have found that I'm good at, and it works really well for me because I sit in the office. I'm not out in the community. I take in the information, I process things, I kind of set systems up, but I am not the one out there with the megaphone. And I think that's kind of a good metaphor for that because I'm helping elevate the voices of those who need to be elevated without, in my, as best as I can, without taking up too much of that, the wavelength of those megaphones. I worked a lot in politics in my youth, and I learned a very good lesson in my hometown. The former mayor of my hometown, Joe Jaworski, he's just about as white as they come. I mean, like, he wears the cowboy boots with the jeans and the blazer, and he is just like, the whitest guy. And I worked on his campaign for Texas Attorney General, and we're walking. If you don't know, Galveston is the home of Juneteenth, and so Juneteenth has always been a huge festival in my town. I actually didn't know it wasn't a federal holiday until I moved to Virginia, and I was like, oh, this isn't like a thing that everybody was raised with. But so I was walking with Joe on the 2021. Juneteenth festival, which was kind of a big year because that was the year it became a holiday. And he, as a former mayor, he's talking really, really smoothly with every single type of community member. And there were particularly a lot of Black Galvestonians coming up to him and having these conversations. And he was using, he was so comfortable talking to them and they trusted him. And I was like, how does that work? Because he is an upper class white lawyer from Houston and just like about as white can come. And I said, how does that work? How did you build that sort of trust in the community? And he said, because I didn't use this. And he pointed to his mouth. He said, I used these, and pointed to his ears. He said, anything that I was saying on behalf of them, it was a straight funnel. It was a straight megaphone from them to me. And that built the trust because I didn't push my agenda and take what I wanted them to say and say that. I took what they said and I built the trust in the community. And I used my ears first and my mouth second. And I thought that was really good way to navigate within that, because I think that it is the job of white people and white passing people to elevate voices of those who wouldn't automatically be elevated, because my voice is automatically elevated, and it's my job then to turn and pass that microphone, because for so long white people have only passed the microphone between themselves. And so as a white person who gets past the microphone, who has the wherewithal to know that system exists, it's my job to not pass it to another white person, but to pass it to outside of this sort of unbreakable circle.
Okay, can appreciate that. I'm gonna need y'all to do some training around town. Y'all need to train some people on this mindset. I'm just saying.
You all are clearly partnering with, working with a board and local organizations and residents of the city who are trying to address and correct or improve some really difficult issues, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess my question is more so about what the whole process of this community organizing and the changes that it makes actually looks like. Because I think I'm sure that you're obviously addressing things, or the residents are bringing up things like policing, conditions of housing, health and wealth disparities, maybe food security. I don't know what all pours into this funnel of purview of where you work or operate, but what does that actually look like?
Yeah, so we do community outreach in a lot of different ways. So I'll start by talking about our internship program, which I mentioned before, but it's a months-long program for adults to join and basically learn the skills needed to become community organizers themselves. So that includes like public speaking, one-on-ones, like all that, flyering, all that. And they're able to gain the skills to then become leaders in their own communities. And we've seen a lot of success. This internship program goes back many, many years. And we've seen a lot of success in people, even if they don't become community organizers, they become empowered to seek out whatever their dreams and do whatever they want to do. So that's one aspect. And then I'll talk about the youth for a second. So recently we had a youth town hall at West Haven, and we invited the youth to come and give their opinions as to the redevelopment that's happening, and give their opinions as to what they want to see in the community, what's important to them. And again, it's all about listening. It's using your ears, not your mouth. So we learned a lot about the youth, not just what they want, like redevelopment. Like, for example, for them, it was really important that the basketball court have lights. And that was like a priority for them.
Simple, right?
So you would think it's so simple. But it's also, we're also starting a youth internship program, which is similar to our adult internship program, but it's for a shorter amount of time, but for the same reason, basically, to educate youth on community organizing and empower them to become leaders themselves. And then it's also a lot about one-on-ones. So in my job, I just say it's about talking. It's about talking and listening. It's about making connections with people. And I've only been here a month, and I am still just walking in and being like, okay, it's going to take months, maybe years for you to trust me, and that's okay. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just gaining the trust of communities. I'm having a meet and greet event on Tuesday for people to just come and for me to introduce myself, for people to come speak to me about their issues, anything that they want to, or if they just want to talk. We love getting to know our residents, not just when they have a problem, but when life is good. We want to know what they like to do, if they like football, if they like soccer. We like having those connections with people. So I would say that it's all about building connections with people, and making programming that directly benefits the community and helps empower them to become leaders themselves. And so Latricia Giles, our executive director, is a very strong proponent of the importance of youth in that. And so that's something that we've really been focusing on as an organization. And that's why we're starting this youth internship program, is to, youth are the future. They're the future leaders. So we like to say that it's your community. You should care what happens to it. And so in these redevelopment conversations, these are, things that take years, like phases, but it's something that will affect their future homes. So we want to make sure that everyone's being included in the conversation, that everyone's being represented, and that everyone is saying exactly what they think, and learning and becoming better humans, and just people who can stand up for other people.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing is sort of like the middle ground. It's like you're here, and this is how we serve you. But talk about sort of the inlet and the outlet, right? The beginning and the potential end, right? If someone is looking for public housing, is in need, right? What is that process to obtain said thing? And then what about folks who may want a plan or have a plan, and it's temporary, and they're saying, I have a goal of being a homeowner. Right. So talk about those two things right quick, if you can. If someone needs the public housing, and when someone's trying to get out of public housing.
Yeah. So to answer the second thing first, that's a very complicated thing, and it's hard enough for non-low income housing residents to get out of tenantship, as any sort of tenantship to get to ownership is incredibly difficult. But there are numerous things that are joint issues between us, CRHA, and other organizations. Financial literacy is a big one. I know that we have programming about simple things like learning how to to navigate the processes of saving money and get out of this sort of generational disparities within like wealth, like physical, tangible wealth. And so there is some programming that is hosted. I know we had a financial literacy program at the end of last year. So that's part of programming that'll go forward. And you'll find that is not just us. Other organizations are interested in that, because ultimately that's the goal for everybody. Everybody who has their hand in the pot of public housing also wants to get people out of public housing, because it's not a great end all be all solution for everybody in the world, in the country. As for intake, this is where it's tricky. So FAR actually doesn't represent residents until they become public housing residents. Which is tricky, because we do get that. We do have people coming asking us to help them get on wait lists and things. But that is where it's completely on the government side, because there's a variety of it's a ridiculously complicated system, honestly. And
the government.
It makes me very, very heated when I think and about really how complicated this process is. Because I remember when I first started working at FAR, I had a phone call, something like that. I need to get on a wait list. And I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be something I can Google and talk about. And boy, if I don't really understand it to this day. The intricacies of understanding the differences between Section 8 and public housing and the voucher programs, and understanding how your public residences, like which one it falls under, and if they've changed it from public housing to Section 8, it's incredibly complicated. And then on top of that, finding out who is in charge of these different things. Is it CRHA? Is it private landlords that are on a voucher? Is it there's the ones for the county, there's the ones for the city, and there's so many wait lists and things. And so that is a very, very difficult process. And
sounds like a job opportunity.
Right? And that's part of the issue as well in this larger conversation, is there's so many things that need specific help with. I think there should be a whole other organization that is just to get people housed. Point blank. I think that it's actually funny. My mom is in Texas, works in homelessness. That's her area, her passion project. And that's one of the things that she has been navigating, is she was formerly unhoused for like 15 years or something. And that is one of the hardest things to make the initial leap. And then it comes from the other direction of people coming, kind of having difficulties from whatever their current residency issue is, and then falling into homelessness. And I think that needs its own thing. But so far, it doesn't represent people until we're actually in the system, until we're public housing. And because of the constraints of funding and how we operate, it has to be Charlottesville City, it has to be public housing. So,
but if somebody comes to your, I'm sorry, real quick, if somebody comes to your office though, and they say, hey, I'm in need and I believe I qualify for public housing, where do you send them?
So we have a bunch of resources, actually. We have a big, long resource list where basically kind of take the temperature of what the situation is. Is this something where
Who
it's
all
like,
have a wait list?
yeah, is
But
this
keep going.
is this a you know, is this an immediate need? Is this a family? Is this a single gender? Is this do we need like shelter? And so we have a list of resources. So we basically go down the list and say, okay, well then
I got you.
so you're a single person and you do not currently need housing, or you will need in the next couple months. Here's the person you go to. Here's the organization you go to. And then you need something tonight, here's the organization you go to. Because we don't provide mutual aid, and that's a difficulty for us, I think.
Does FAR ever play any role in like evictions? Because they happen, and I'm sure
you could take this.
And then my other question is whether or not you provide any representation or what are organizing when it comes to the residents being represented to maybe even HUD.
Yep. So I will start with evictions. So we actually just had a workshop the other day on evictions. And to just learn more about the process. If someone comes to us and they're like, I'm getting evicted, we take on that situation. We get in touch with the people we need to get in touch with. There's a long process, and they have to give in the first 30 days, they have to give a notice, and then they have to give a phone call. It's a long,
which doesn't always happen.
And that's the important thing is that, there might be processes, but the system isn't perfect, and there's a lot of gaps and holes. So, if someone is getting evicted and they feel that they did not, that it's a wrongful eviction, they will come to us and we will help them communicate with the people necessary. We also had someone recently, if you have any issues with like rent or the rent that you're paying, because it may change monthly, depends on if you're working or if you're not working, things like that. So evictions is something that definitely we work on. And then I will say we partner with the Legal Aid Justice Center a lot. And so for legal matters, we have lawyers that we rely on that can, help residents through the legal processes. If they need representation, anything like that. So we are able to connect them with the appropriate resources for them to then communicate with the necessary people and get the help that they need.
Gotcha. Good stuff. Good stuff. We are joined by Sophia and Maya of FAR Seville. So speaking of that, before we let you all go, Sophia, we have a partnership coming up, don't we?
We do. So
let the good people know.
We are having an event on May 27th at 5:30. It's going to be a city council forum. We've invited many different elected officials, from Craig Eads to Katrina Carlson, to Juan Diego Wade, everyone. So every person running for city council will be there. And we're hoping to have an open conversation about what people really care about, what people want to know. Elected officials need to be held accountable, and this is just one of the ways that we're doing that. So we're going to have an event where we're going to have little breakout groups. People are going to talk about a variety of different topics, from housing to healthcare to education, and they'll be able to have conversations and ask questions to these city council officials and these other public officials and, hold them accountable. So that'll be at the Jefferson School, again, May 27th at 5:30.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Ms. Max?
I don't have anything left, unless you all have something that you want to leave with the listening audience.
I also just want to add, so we're starting a new program. It's called FAR Voices, FAR Votes. And it's all about voter engagement and voter registration. So something that we're really passionate about as an organization is also getting people to show up to the polls, providing transportation, things like that. So with this new initiative, this is just the first event that we're hosting, but we're really looking forward to hosting a variety of different events to increase voter engagement, voter registration, and have people hold public officials accountable. So
yeah.
Well, we definitely want to thank you for both of you for joining us today. Thank you for your work that you're doing in our community and helping to enhance the lives of the residents of the city of Charlottesville.
I don't want y'all to get in trouble with Latricia, so I'm gonna make sure y'all have opportunity. You are a nonprofit, if people want to donate or get involved, how do they do that?
Yeah. So we have a fair bit of the easiest way, I think, is probably to give us a call. You can call our office at 434-984-3255. We can get you in touch with whoever you'd like to, or you can also email us. I'd say we're actually in between development coordinators right now. So you can email Latricia at farseaville.org and say that you'd like to donate. We do depend on private funding as well as the public funding we do receive. And we also have some things coming up that make it a little easier. If we have West Haven Community Day is a huge event that will be coming up in August, and that has some more specific donation opportunities. But yeah, if you'd like more specific info, give us a call, give us an email, and we will put you in contact and get you what you need to, if you feel like helping out the little guys on the nonprofit front.
Yeah, and that's well for folks. If I'm sure there's probably volunteer opportunities, right? Or like folks who may want to partner, businesses or orgs that want to partner.
Absolutely,
with.
We are, like I said, we are in a kind of reorganization phase, and so we are reestablishing kind of old forlorn business partnerships and community partnerships, as well as seeking volunteers always and everywhere. So please, any of these concerns, please, shout us out. We can find room for you somewhere to kind of help out and lend a helping hand. We are very, very grateful for any support that we can receive. Like, it takes the individual effort, and that's what what we're all about is uplifting our community through community action, through collective action, not just expecting that the big governments and such are going to hand it down to us.
Right.
We know that's not happening.
Right. Thank you, ladies, again. We appreciate you.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. that's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
Check, mic check. Mic check, mic check. Hello?
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I to the ism, H to the Izzo talk show, and Razor up here turning knobs like something ain't working. We good, Razor?
Sabotage.
We good, homie?
Yeah, I think so. I think.
Razor,
You
you're not give me a lot of confidence.
Well, I wasn't. She wasn't telling me if it was good or not, so I didn't want to give you no false hope.
Okay, all right, I feel you. Well, you could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and I must say that is a good idea because we are live and in effect with our good brother, good friend of Right Group Counseling. Yet another great community resource for us by us for this Mental Health Awareness Month of May. None other than Nick Wright. Mr. Wright, how you been, man? Good afternoon.
Hey, good to see you all. Appreciate you all having me.
Of course.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah. Now, for those that don't know, I called Nick one day trying to, like trying to get the brother for a quick lunch or something, because he and I catch up every now and then. He said, man, I ain't there no more. I'm like, so Nick tried to run away from me, y'all, but I still tracked him down, and thankfully that he still obliges getting on these radio airwaves.
Where's he at now?
I mean, I ain't putting the man business out. He could tell us.
So I'm in the Northern Virginia area, so I'm in Alexandria, but my practice is still virtual, still part of Central Virginia Clinicians of Color Network. Still doing a lot of work in Charlottesville related to mental health, and I don't know, Charlottesville did a lot for me and continues to do a lot for me, and so I continue to try to give back and donate and do whatever I can.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. Much obliged, man. Much appreciated for sure, man. So this May 2025. So Nick, I don't know if you know, but last live show we had the good brother Gene Cash on here.
Oh, great. That's one of my mentors.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Speaking of clinicians of color and all that, I know you guys work very, very well together, providing mental health resources, to the people. And so I'm gonna ask you just like we asked him. It is 2025. It is yet another month that has been set aside, designated for mental health awareness. So when you think about where we are right now, May 2025, what is on the agenda? What are the initiatives that Right Group Counseling is sharing with people?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Really for 2025 is really consistency. In terms of like the business model, just continue to be consistent. Show up, give people that quality care that you would want for your family, and just give that next level customer service and understanding. As it relates to just individuals working on their own mental health, I tell them to take time for yourself. Enjoy the journey. That's the big thing for 2025. Enjoy the journey. A lot of times life can be stressful. We have all these things coming, bills, social media, jobs, the administration right now. And so, I encourage you to fight the things that you can fight, but also enjoy the journey. So whether that's a scoop of ice cream before you go to bed or listening to IMHO talk show.
Hey, there we go.
Just enjoy the journey along the way. I'd rather go to war with someone and we lose the fight and someone that's going to run away. And so I encourage you to fight while you can. I'd rather you pace yourself versus just burning out.
Good word.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
Do I have an option? Nah, lay it on me, Razor. I welcome it.
Hey, when it comes to the state of our communities, right, regardless of color, do you feel that some people are using mental health as an excuse to not really fix themselves?
Yeah, so if they have like a concrete mindset versus a growth mindset, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
I think people can weaponize it. I think some people use it as a trigger word. They know some of the words, they manipulate certain situations to get out of things. But it's like, what are we doing to become better? It's good to identify your triggers. Oh, I'm triggered. Okay, that's good. Now, what is your trigger response? What is your trauma response when you are triggered? And then on top of that, if you know that it's a negative trauma response, what are you doing differently to change that? So if it's negative self-talk is your automatic trauma response when you're triggered, what are you doing to try to talk back, combat that? So if you say something negative, say 2 positives to try to combat that negative energy that you bring upon yourself or that others bring towards you. And so, yes, short answer, people definitely weaponize it. But I think identifying that you have these traumas, I think that's kind of where a counselor comes through, or just someone that supports you. They kind of help you through your journey.
Yeah. So if I may, Charles, really that was a great question, Razor. Thank you for that. And I want to piggyback off of it a little bit, because in the last couple of weeks, I was fortunate enough to hear something that kind of opened up my thought process to it in terms of mental health. And so someone was explaining an experience that they had when they were younger. And the person that they were sharing with said, "Oh my God, that must have been so traumatizing." And the response from that person was, "Not everything is trauma." Huh.
True that.
Huh.
Yeah, that's so valid. You're absolutely right. Not everything
like
is
a catchphrase.
trauma.
Right.
Sometimes you got to get back on defense.
So so great point. And let me pose this way. I read an article not too long ago, y'all, where it was talking about how I think it's like, what's the last generation? Not millennials. Is that millennials the last one?
X,
or maybe it's X, the ones after 2000.
Right.
Yeah, the two
After
yeah,
2000.
what is it?
I don't know. Elemental PQ. What?
I don't know. But anyway, but what it was is like the current generation, right? Like the young generation that's in the workforce. So folks that are in their like 20s.
Gen Z.
Is that Gen Z? Okay, maybe it's Gen Z. Yeah. Okay, Gen Z. My bad. So is that there is an alarming rate of layoffs and folks getting fired based on like job productivity and whatnot, right? So one of the things in the article that is talking about is that there is a generation of wellness, so to speak, right? And when, of course, wellness in general, has a good connotation, right? It's like you want to take care of your wellness, especially like your mental wellness and health and wellness, right? But what it touches on though is to the point we all been making of now we have folks who take a lot of mental health breaks, right? Like that's also a norm and whatnot. And so with the findings is that it is being abused, right? And so like it just makes me wonder, like, how do we correct that trajectory though, Nick, of like where you find that work-life balance of taking serious that, I have a job that gets hard sometimes, right? Sometimes work is work, right? But then I also need to be respectful of when I really do need a break. I need people to be respectful of when I feel like that I'm like too taxed to the max, and for us not to abuse that which we're talking about.
In your response, Nick, if you could expand on what I said though.
I'm sorry.
Because I just think it's a key. There's a few things that come across in our show that I believe are keys to our listening audience. I think it's a key. And so the distinction between what is traumatizing and what we need to seek help with and what isn't and is survivable.
Yeah, that's okay. That's an interesting question. I think everything isn't trauma. I think that the idea that people are, I guess, abusing it. Sure, I think that happens, but I think it's like sometimes we need to challenge back, especially if, corporations do the research in terms of like who is saying that people are abusing it and in what way are they abusing it? Because I feel like there's some companies that abuse the employees. I get a lot of people for different FMLA situations where they have over like 400 hours of sick leave, and the company won't let them take off to even just like show up to their kids' school for dad lunch day. If they take off, they get a point. And so when you're looking at a corporation that has like a 3-point system, and then you're put on a corrective action plan, it's you're kind of putting people in a certain situation. This is somebody that's been on the job, we'll say 30 plus years at this corporation. And so I think it can go both ways. People can abuse a vehicle, but that doesn't stop us from still driving. Like I think the good outweighs the bad. And so I would kind of challenge that article, and I would continue to challenge, some of those people, encourage them, right? In terms of increasing their performance, you can challenge some of those concrete thinking processes and encouraging them to have a growth mindset. Okay, this is a barrier for you. If they acknowledge it as a barrier, let's acknowledge it as a barrier, but what are we going to do to kind of help them move through it? How do we progress? And they might not progress at the speed that you want,
right?
But I think with repetition, environment, the right motivation, I mean, things can change. I know you've been around basketball, and there's a difference between a coach that is just yelling nonstop at the kids and expecting them to perform better. What are you doing? What are you thinking? Come on, are you this? Are you that? Versus a coach that's like, yo, good job, but next time I want you to swing left instead of going right. And so sometimes people learn differently. And then in terms of like navigating Max's kind of idea of trauma, not everything is trauma and what we need to seek help with. That's kind of a heavy question, because not everything is trauma. Somebody falls on the ground, they get back up. But sometimes if someone, all right, so in order for something to be considered, like, there's different levels of trauma. Like you have PTSD, you have primary, you have tertiary trauma. And so a lot of things could be deemed trauma. You're right. However, what is our end goal? What is our desired outcome? And so, yes, this might be traumatic for you, but we can't allow it to stop you from moving forward. If we wanted to, we could deem a lot of things trauma, but it's not going to be enough to help you get it like a disability check, right? Like, because it doesn't qualify and it doesn't stop you from moving forward. Now, you might have some hindrances and you might have some different socioeconomical things that are in the way, not just your own mental, like whether it's finances, it's job stability, all these different things. But we can try to navigate that and work on it together. But I mean, we're not necessarily in a place to say if someone's experiencing trauma, I can't say that that's not their trauma. I can say you having trauma symptoms, you're having a bad day, you're frustrated, you're irritated. But for it to be trauma, it has to be debilitating. And it has to be something that really just sticks with you or has intrusive thoughts, or it might, if you're sleeping and it just impedes upon your everyday life. I think those are some of the traumas that exist and are the ones that are more so highlighted.
Okay.
I don't know if that answered your question.
No, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the.
This killing me. This killing me.
Tell me, Razor.
Because I mean, it's just I'm gonna speak my truth and I'm gonna fall on my sword. I'm wondering when Charles asked about the unemployment or people getting fired, if it has a lot to do with males than females, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah.
I would be, if I was a gambling man, I would say it would apply more to the males, right? And it, in my humble opinion, it's, if you look at the people that's getting fired, a lot of it probably has to do with unsteady households. And it's not popular for you to have a manly male come up underneath you as a young child. You know, when I hear women talk about their sons and he can wash clothes and he can cook and he can clean, he can do, you know, they tell me how he knows how to be a great woman, but he doesn't know how to be a man. So then there are boys from my time of cutting hair 20 some years and just listening to people talk, they give so many excuses as to why the boys don't have to be tough, right? They don't have to dig in. They don't have to be what would be considered that could lead a man. They're babied, right? And they give up. So then essentially they're becoming something that they were not meant to be from their origin. So then when you start saying, Charles, that like they get fired because they don't like to do the uncomfortable stuff, somebody raised their voice too much at them, everything has to do with how they're being treated in the home. And that resonates over to the employment world. Like they don't like the way something is done to them if it's, like a person is within eyesight or voice range. If it's typing on like the game systems, they can cuss each other and tell everything, all kind of crazy stuff. And this, I've watched this happen over the course of like 20 some years. You know what I'm saying? From cutting hair and listening to people's stories. So when I'm hearing what Max said, that everything isn't trauma, it isn't. But at the same time, the atmosphere that was built inside the home to where order, leadership, and everything cannot really be administered properly, then you're left with the symptom of having a generation, X gen, whatever y'all called it, that literally does not have the ability to push through something hard and without falling apart themselves. And in Razor talking, the worst thing that generation that y'all are describing can do is have children. Because that child cannot count on them, because the only thing that they can do, only thing that they know how to do, in my humble opinion, is shut down. Get angry, shut down, run off, close themselves in the closet, bathroom, whatever their symptom, how they handle like controversy or something. And it's because the households are unstable. And I think that men have done a bad job, even though the majority of houses have combined families.
So you're talking about the way, like maybe
I think the households.
You're talking about the way somebody is brought up, not necessarily their current. Because we're talking about adults.
Yeah.
Like,
they were once children.
Living on, okay.
Those adults were once
clarifying.
children,
Yeah.
right? And we tend to look at an age saying that you're an adult now. But if you were to write out who they really are and don't put no names or no genders, and then ask a person who did not know who you were talking about to read it and put the age of the person on here, I'm willing to bet most people would pick that child was a lot younger than the person that somebody's talking about. So when you go onto an entrepreneur's place, that my money, my livelihood is attached to you doing what I say do, or you figuring out, or you not making mistakes, or you whatever it is, and then they get talked to a certain way, then the first thing that they normally do is run home and look for the pampering. And then they don't have to go back out. You ain't got to put up with that. And you ain't got all these type of things. And then they're being taken care of. So remember the movie Baby Boy? What Tyrese kept doing? You know what I'm saying? We have that so prevalent. But the problem is, the second that you start talking about children and the way people conduct their children now, we have a gender group that immediately gets in an uproar because they know they're the ones that's been in control of the household for about the past 25 years.
Let's say
that's just Razor's opinion.
I'm sorry, Nicholas. Let me put some respect in that man's name.
No, I think
that's Dr. Nick, ain't it?
No, I'm not a doctor. I'm licensed professional counselor. But no, I think you're making some valid points. Points have been made. I think we shouldn't negate time. Resilience is also something that can be built over time, as well as situations that they're involved in.
So can triflingness.
Tell me again.
So can being trifling. Time helps foster that too.
Okay. So can be in trifling.
Yeah. Not doing it. I mean, you can.
I mean, you could have that in every situation, though.
Like
even in regards to your scenario with the person who is supposed to do well because they're in this 2-family household, and then dad is supposed to be this machismo guy, and mom's supposed to just feminize her son. That doesn't necessarily mean that this person is going to come out and be this dominant alpha person that's going to be the successful business person. Not at all.
That's true. No. I agree with you.
You can make some of the wimpiest people in the world in that scenario because they're coddled in every which way, or sometimes coddling can actually help because it creates an environment where they feel confident in themselves.
Not for no boy.
I've seen it both ways, though, right? I definitely think there can be some things, right? You need a coach. A coach can help in different ways, right? I think I think there's a time and a place. I think there needs to be a little bit of balance, right? I agree with that. But I do think that time can also help in terms of building resilience. I don't think it's necessarily one of these things where if you just work somebody that's going to automatically make them a man. Or
that's true. No, I agree with you on that. I agree with you 1,000% on that.
You can end up breaking them too.
Human being
like that.
Slave, right?
You definitely can break somebody.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then they come see me and they like, I just don't want to do nothing. Right? They're completely burnt out. And so I think in all actuality, right, you do have that balance. Trauma is it's an interesting thing. I think it's a trigger word, but because you don't just always have trauma. Sometimes you just have stress, right? I'm just stressed. And so I think trauma is just a word that's really popular. People like to say it because it's popular vernacular.
Like narcissists.
Or gaslighting, right? And so
gaslight,
it's one of those things where it's like people like the trauma bond too. I think it's a common thing.
Oh yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I
think we got to watch that. But no, I think a lot of people are stressed. I think stress is a very real thing. Stress can kill you. High blood pressure, high cholesterol. It can lead to just diabetes and all types of crazy stuff. It decreases your ability to focus and relax. And so I think it is important to relax, but you got to take care of business. I mean, and so I think that's where time comes in, because time sometimes allows you to take a step back, look, analyze and choose what character traits have been bothering your life and what character traits you want to take with you moving forward into the future, so you can be a self-sufficient individual, productive in society, pay your bills, help your family, help your community.
And I'm thinking one way to maybe sum it up too is like unaddressed stress equals trauma.
Oh, trauma. Here we go.
Is that a fair statement? Is that a fair statement? And the reason I said that is because you just listed some qualifiers around trauma. And like how we said, everything is not traumatic. It's like it's almost a buzzword now. And so my whole point was, but it's like if you let that stress, if something stresses you and it builds up to a point, then it becomes traumatic. Is that anywhere near accurate in your opinion?
I just want to point out that we're speaking to a therapist or a counselor who doesn't necessarily care for the trauma word. And you have to agree that not everything is trauma.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If I let people diagnose themselves, you'd be surprised what comes out. No, you have to assess. You definitely have to assess. I think that stress, compounded stress can lead to a traumatic situation or an unfortunate situation. I wouldn't necessarily just go straight traumatic situation. If you don't pay your bills because you're stressed, now you might end up in a situation where you're couch surfing or you're trying to figure things out. And that can lead to, I would say, even more stress, but I wouldn't necessarily label people with trauma. You got to be careful labeling folks.
Absolutely.
That labeling thing, people start to use that as their identity. People have experienced trauma. Sometimes people will walk into a room and they'll say, "Hi, my name is Nick, and I've experienced," I'm using myself for an example or whatever, right? Like, okay, hi, my name is B, and I have experienced blah, 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 a lot of different things. They identify with their trauma. More so, but if you can remove that person from their trauma and put themselves in front of it, if you can allow them to build their self-worth, if you can allow them to understand that I am someone who this is a piece of my life, but this is not my entire life,
right,
then you can get some traction and then you can move forward. But you don't want someone to identify with the trauma solely. We can look through the past until you are blue in the face. And some therapists will do that. That's the business model side of things. But someone that's really trying to help you, we're going to look at the past because that's where we need to go. Your body does keep the score. I'm a firm believer in that. But I also acknowledge that eventually we have to reach a point where we have to say, what is stopping me from moving forward?
Right. And there is a difference between maybe a kid coming to a parent and saying, I'm going through this, I'm feeling like this, I'm feeling traumatized about this, and the response being, boy, ain't nothing wrong with you. Girl, ain't nothing wrong with you.
Especially in the Black community.
I was waiting I thought Nick was going to respond.
No, you got a valid point. I think we got to create that space for balance, right? Like, hey, get in that shower. You stink.
Yeah.
But I just went outside for a little bit. Like to Razor's point, to all you all's point, like eventually you do need you have to parent them. And so even if you don't know all the things, maybe we are not our parents. Yeah. So let's say that too. We are our own setup. We can create our own rules in our own home. And so let's try to create an environment that's healthy. Hey, ain't nothing wrong with you. Go in there, go lay down.
Hey, Nick.
You said that's what needs to be said.
Hey, Nick, I got a question for you. Something I was thinking about, Charles, that said like probably about a month or two ago, we was talking about something. All right. Let me try to bring it to Max's statement. And when she said, boy, ain't nothing wrong with you. How do you parent a child from two different lenses when you don't, let's say the child listens to dad more, right? So every time mom has an objection to the way dad does something, the child is running to dad because that's who they resonate more with, or that's who protects them more, or whatever, right?
Correct.
But it is not helping foster them in the proper way. How do two parents, be them in the household or co-parenting in different households, come to that agreement where the child is not using them against each other to get what they want, or to not have to really do anything? Because in our community, we have a lot of broken families and we have a lot of combined families. And as a barber, I saw a lot of people being used by the child. The child would tell me the truth and lie to each parent depending on the situation. And I saw it young on up. So by the time they realize what works for them, that's the type of relationships that they build. They find the young lady that they can use that then takes over for whatever parent was babying them. They find the job that they can get over on. They just not accountable for nothing. So how do you like kind of head that off? And I'm more old school, like tell them the truth, whatever that is. So and then build from then. But not everybody is built like that. Some people feel immediately attacked. So how do you find that? You're saying balance. I'm seeing a community overall that has children that ain't us, in my opinion. And you would not want that child raising your grandchildren in the state that they are now. But if you never took the time to fix it, now you're looking at an adult who can kind of do their own thing. Where's the balance in that? Because now they have their own choices.
Yeah, no. Okay. So they have their own choices, but I think they also have a choice to be better. And so with education, with community, with school engagement, I mean, with all these different, ideally with an environment that's conducive for success, someone will achieve. And so it's like, you said a couple of different things, right? So we're talking about, the first thing I'll tackle was how do we parent from two different lenses? All right, so the first thing, parenting from two different lenses is a challenge. So first acknowledge that it is a challenge. So that's for the people who are experiencing that stress, so that you can sit in your car for 5 minutes, calm down before you go into the house and bring it all inside with you. When you first walk into the door, I want you to say 3 things you're grateful for. And when you leave that door, I want you to say 3 things you're grateful for, right? And then that will create a level of stability in which you're not just bringing in that negative energy with you, right? All right. Number 2 is the parents are the fulcrum of power. So fulcrum being the triangle on the seesaw. If the parents are equal, if the fulcrum is in the middle, then the seesaw will work correctly. There will be ups and there will be downs, but there will be a good ebb and flow. But if the fulcrum is shifted too far to the left, the seesaw isn't going to balance. If it's too far to the right, toward dad or towards mom, that seesaw isn't going to seesaw the way it needs to. And so, I'll say, I don't know, I don't have the stats on it, but I would say 9 out of 10 times when you're doing a family assessment, if the parents aren't in a stable position, then you're going to get some chaos within the children because of there's no order in terms of like respect. The parents don't respect each other. The parents don't agree related to the objective of the child. So the correction styles might be different, but if the objective is, hey, let's make sure that homework is done, education is important. Let's not just focus on grades. Let's create a good person. I just want them to be a good person. I don't want their self-esteem to be based off of an A, B, or C, or a D. I want them to actually just be a good person. If they get a B or a C, but they still are neighborly, they look after their elders, they're respectful, they have a good work ethic, we can work with this. And so if the parents can agree upon that, let's start there on what our goal is for our child. And then we can focus on what are the next steps. How can we create an environment that's actually conducive for that success? If we're yelling back and forth, if dad is seeing mom disrespect him and vice versa, then the child is going to kind of manipulate that situation. Now, there's another thing that's kind of in here that you're putting in there, and that can almost be like a grieving process, especially when parents might divorce and separate and then remarry. So there can be a grieving process for that child. That child is trying to navigate what that looks like. They can be in denial. They can have all these different stages. They can be angry. They can be questioning. They can be sad. And so all of these things also come into play when you're blending a family, especially if there's like a recent divorce or there's a transition. How many adults don't like transition?
Yeah.
They implement a new rule. Everybody, I can't. I feel like that was the catchphrase last year. I had a lot of people use, I can't. They do it anyway, but they just, I can't themselves all the way through the 8-hour shift. And so children are going to do the same thing. They're going to have a little resistance. Some of that stuff is age appropriate, but it comes down to the parents being the fulcrum of power. Unless that fulcrum is in the middle and they have a understanding for what they're going to do. Now, and let's also be clear, raising kids is a challenge in itself.
Yep, I know.
Yeah, no doubt.
They used to say, I prayed for you every day.
Hey, boy, I didn't think you were gonna make it.
Yeah,
I know. and so I'm a firm believer that is still true. I think the best time to help a teenager is before they're a teenager. But I also believe that hopefully some of the things you instill stick with them, and they're gonna find their way. Sometimes you got to let them bump their own head, even though what they're doing is going to cause them to bump their own head. But you got to give them some space to do it so they can build confidence, and also so they can gain some sort of understanding and discernment. And discernment is one of those things they don't necessarily teach in school. That's something that you have to instill in them. What's right, what's wrong, what's good behavior, what's not, what's manipulative, what's not, what's sneaking and stealing dollars. Like that's something that they have to learn and put in themselves. They're not going to get an A, B, C, D, E, F on that. They're going to get whatever life gives them if they don't develop that mindset for discernment. Just because someone is on social media and they got it popping on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, don't think that person just rolled out of bed and just came famous. That person put in work. That person wrote a proposal. That person put together a skit list. That person works. You don't just get in. And so it's hard to have that discernment if no one's kind of teaching them what happens on the back end.
Right. Hey, Nick, I want to bring attention to something that I believe you have mentioned every single time that you've been a guest on the show. You did it again today. And you talked about when a person is entering into what might be a challenging situation, before doing so, that they list 3 things that they're grateful for. So it's almost like you do your therapy from a mindset of gratefulness. Another person might hear that and say, okay, maybe just prayer before you deal with a challenging situation. And so I guess my question is, how does that kind of trick the brain or the emotions into being able to navigate a difficult situation more smoothly, so that, more successfully?
Yeah.
Or am I viewing that incorrectly?
No, you're doing a great job. You're amazing. You listened. I appreciate that. I feel like sometimes I don't know if I'm necessarily conveying the point, but you're spot on. It does trick the mind. It does create a space of gratitude and appreciation versus harboring some of those negative things. If we go outside right now, and let's say there's 5 of us, and one of us goes outside and says, "It's hot out here." How many people are going to agree?
Right.
How quick does one voice change the culture? And the same thing applies for ourselves. If one person goes outside and says it's hot out here, everybody be like, "Yeah, it is hot. Woo! I'm glad I got some ice water. This, I'm that, I'm this. Woo!" But if one person says out of the 5, if another person says it's actually not that bad, it feels pretty good today.
You right. That's what we do.
You're right. You're right.
That one voice can change a room. And so I encourage people to be that voice for yourself sometimes. Remove yourself from the trauma. That one person said it's hot outside. Now everybody ready to trauma bond. Yeah, it is hot. Yeah, woo. Oh, they changing the rules again. They sending new emails, this and that. Be that one person to say, we'll be all right.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Same thing as last time. And so that rule can also be applied to our everyday life.
Yep.
When you wake up in the morning, just be like, for me, thank you God for this day. And so I think the momentum that we create by speaking life is so strong. It can really move a mountain, and it can change everyone around you. One voice can stop an army.
Yeah, perspective, right? Mindset. That's what's up. We are talking to Nicholas Wright, Wright Group Counseling's own. There's a pop culture thing going on right now that we want to touch on before we let you go, Nick. But we will get to it. But one of the things I wanted to address real quick though, that what I hear y'all saying is that there's so much hereditary and genetically to where we don't even know why we think a certain way or operate a certain way. Right, until a family member may be like, "Boy, you remind me of your great granddaddy." You know what I mean? You heard that?
Yeah.
So there's things there, but then I think about even us culturally, it's sort of the same thing. And so, because when I hear us talking about, our work ethics, right, and things of that sort, and how much stress we can carry, handle through working and stuff like that. What brings it home for me that I see a lot of times is that we operate, especially as people of the African diaspora, we operate within a foreign system. And what I don't want people to do, and I would love you comment on it, is that there's a saying, don't become what you once despised. Right. And that happens so many times because we want to fit in, we want to be successful. And then we start taking on traits that we otherwise don't want to take on because we're like, but this is what you do. This is how you get a leg up. Yeah. This is how you make money, right? So then, because I sit in these kind of conversations as well as there's these leadership of color circles and stuff, and it's safe spaces where people get to vent, Black folk that are in corporate spaces get to vent with each other, right? And it's what you find is that, man, it's you're stressed out every day, just about living, right? We live in a system that's foreign. It tells us, you got to act like this. You got to be like this to make it. So I just want you to comment on that. It's just being faced with that is living in a world that's juxtaposed to your nature and telling you that you need to change even your spirituality in order to be successful in this world. How you balance that?
Yeah. I mean, there's societal norms. And so, your religious preference is on you. but I think you have to figure out what works
Mm-hmm.
based off of the different experiences that you've had. Whether it's, I mean, putting on clothes. I mean, for some people that's uncomfortable, right? But we have societal norms. We have these things in place that we have to kind of follow in order to reach the goals that we want to obtain. And so I think that balance is allowing yourself space to relax. Adults need recess, contrary to belief, right? You remember recess, 30 minutes outside?
Yeah. A nap too. I want recess and a nap.
It's so important that we as adults take 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Give yourself 30. When's the last time you gave yourself an unapologetic 30 minutes to just sit and just exist? It's actually really helpful for critical thinking as well. It just helps with creativity. It helps you just your overall well-being, just getting that rest unapologetically. I mean, there's a lot of choices you have to make in life, and the choice is yours. Ideally, you have a strong circle. I'm a firm believer, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And so, you know, that comes with me into practice. And so I encourage people to kind of, sometimes you got to look at the people around you and be like, hey, I need to get some new friends. This ain't it. I'm trying to change them, but they changing me more. And so sometimes you got to adjust, you got to pivot until you can love them from afar, right? You're still a good friend. Just because I don't see you every day doesn't mean I don't love you.
And it's the workplace too. It's like if you in meetings and people talking over each other, everybody got to be right and stuff like that. And then you sitting there like, man, we could communicate a lot better. But the only way I'm gonna get my point across if I start demeaning my coworker, my colleague, because that's how people become the boss. Because you gotta be, you know what I mean? You gotta have that level of bravado. You know what I mean?
Corporate game.
That's the game. Like that's what I'm saying, though, Nick. We gotta change the game. We gotta create our own game.
Yeah, it's true. But I mean, some of these systems are in place, and some of these games have fed a lot of people and done a lot for them. So I'm not going to knock anyone that's navigating that system 100%, but I would kind of encourage, think about your ethics and who you are as a person. What do you stand for? And how does that kind of resonate with your overall picture and what you want to do and who you want to be known for? When you die, they're not going to be like, hey, that was, they're not going to know you as VP such and such. They're going to know you as, Tony Gonzalez. Like, who is Tony? They're going to know you as Michelle Obama. And they're going to put some respect on Michelle's name because ethically she's solid. Like, she's a good person. And so I think, what do you want to be known for? What do you want people to remember you for? Stepping on everybody's toes to get to the top? That's on you.
We are talking to Nicholas, right? And Nicholas, so we got to touch on this, bro, before we let you go. And we appreciate you sharing some of your Sunday afternoon with us. Much love to you for that. But one thing that everybody's talking about, and unfortunately social media gets like way bonkers, way out of control when we talk about caring about how what people think about each other and how people feel, right? It's like when we look at sort of the top news story, pop culture story right now that it seems like our people are discussing, we're talking about these allegations with Sean Diddy Combs, right? And like we talked about Ye before, we're gonna leave Ye alone today. Ain't nothing else we can say about Ye. We got to do that. But here's the thing though, like you as a professional, right? And when we try to make sense of this, it's like, what can you share when it comes to the mental impact of whether it's abuse and things like that? Because it seems like a popular argument right now that I think is important for people to have, if we can have it, in a very and I guess like an educated manner to where we come into a conclusion. Is just that is like, what is that mental impact of when someone's decisions are no longer their own? Like to when they say, I said that, but I was under an external control and things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because some people find it hard to believe, like that somebody can be impacted mentally or abused mentally to that extent.
Abuse is wild. It's kind of a scary thing. I mean, there were slaves that were free that didn't want to leave the plantation. right? Like not slavery, but just abuse in general. The long-term effects, the immediate effects, it's kind of scary. And what it can do to someone's overall just ability to function. Um, and so, I mean, we have the Stockholm syndrome, right? A lot of people know that word, and how you sometimes care for your abuser, or you're empathetic or even sympathetic to that person, and you humanize it. But I think the part that separates this so much is she couldn't leave. You know, she tried to, blew up Kid Cudi's car. She tried to leave a couple of times, and different things occurred. But Diddy's in trouble. It's in trouble. Yeah, I don't really know what level of abuse occurred.
Right.
I haven't really been following the trials 100%. But I do know that you can grow from this. She can change. She can experience a better life. You know, I think it starts from building yourself. And so rebuilding that sense of self, prioritize safety and that stability, seeking that professional help, setting healthy boundaries, and just practicing some self-compassion, using grounding techniques, reconnect with your body. Those are going to be some of the steps that she's going to have to take to experience that wholeness that she's looking for.
And let's start being more proactive too, because you hear the stories too on how things like this are just perpetuated from I'm gonna say it again, Nick, PTSD. I'm just gonna say T. I ain't gonna say the word this time. But we hear that, like whether you got Kanye coming out talking about stuff happened with him and his cousin. We hear about R. Kelly saying that he was sexually abused as a child, and then so those stories. So I want us to take a stand on being more proactive instead of us having to come back now and be like, oh, here's how you can get out of that and come out of that. Like let's stop perpetuating a narrative that is just, like I said, perpetuating
just a healthy relationship
abuse,
component,
like the generational abuse that happens.
Yeah, no, healthy relationship. Some people don't know what it looks like though, and so I think it's helpful to know at least what you don't want. And so I think education is solid. Experiences, seeing healthy relationships, seeing people communicate. Confrontation happens in relationships, but it's like how we treat each other when we have opposing views is the most important part. It's okay to say it's hot and the other person say it's cold, but how do we treat each other when we have opposing views? Does it get physical? Does it get domestic? Do we start cursing? That's where the issue is.
Nick, you know where I think I'm listening to people, because I try not to chime in when they start talking about these type of issues too often, right? Because I don't understand them. I wasn't abused. I wasn't a part of improper things as a youth, and you know what I'm saying? So I try not to say nothing. But what I do recognize is that some people get involved with things that they then decide that they don't want to do them anymore. And the easiest way is to scream victim. I've seen that happen. I've seen people have to deal with court systems because of it, when in actuality, the relationship should have never turned into what it turned into. And a person does have a right to say that I don't want to play this game no more. You know, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is there are people that got involved with things that then the easiest way out to save their image or whatever, to get people to rally around them, is to pull the victim card. Now, I think it harms the people that truly were victims.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like I was a child, somebody came into my room middle of the night, all of a sudden I'm dating them, but those people is different than somebody 13 getting in the car with an 18-year-old or older and going and do stuff, and then they turn older and then don't want to do it no more, and then say this has been going on for this time, which is true. But what also is true, that even though you were younger, you were a willing participant, And you can say that and say, look, I was a willing participant because I thought this is what I want, but you don't hear that part of it. And then people rally around the victim part. And then that makes other people that are part of it say, oh no, she was going along with it the whole time. I see that with Cassie now. Like even you named Kid Cudi, you named the husband, but she was going back to Diddy. And then we're saying she had Stockholm syndrome, or her mind was messed up, or she like at a point, when does a person, if the body keeps score, like you said, and they're feeling their sin, so to speak, when do they take accountability for that? I'm not saying she's wrong. Please don't nobody think I'm speaking in support of Diddy. I'm just saying I'm looking for the true answer. Like, how do you vet when somebody's just trying to get out of their circumstances, or when somebody truly is messed up mentally?
Yeah, I think she takes accountability every day when she wakes up and she knows that she was a part of these things. And so
that's what Terrence Howard said.
As a whistleblower, I mean, you take accountability, right? Like,
yeah.
And so,
but she took money. That's what I'm saying. And that's the only thing. If she hadn't took the money, it kind of burned me up that people don't bring up, like when we was talking about the basketball player and we start talking about the people and the women and the money, that part kind of gets underneath my skin, because if we're truly looking for the answer, we need to lay it all out on the table. But we tend to not want to bring up certain aspects because it looks damaging against the victim, not so-called victim, but the victim. So I don't like.
I think the part that you're kind of getting stuck on is the idea that she stayed.
No. I get stuck on she kept going back.
She also tried to get away. And then she also came to where we are today.
Mm-hmm.
She did get away. That's how we got to where we are. She told. And so
she blackmailed.
I think that's where we are. And so I think with that being, I think it's hard for us to forget that, like, she did tell. She did try to get away multiple times. Now, there were some times she did come back. Okay. Some could even say that's Stockholm syndrome, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She was in a position where she couldn't move the way she wanted to move. And manipulation isn't just like the physical piece. I think a lot of times they talk about the acts, but there's financial manipulation all the time, right? And so all of these things, when you paint the whole picture, I think that's what kind of makes it that grooming piece. Is that I think I would be interested to hear a lawyer's perspective on this, because we're really blurring the lines of legal as well, and what those terminologies look like. But I think the biggest thing is, like, she did tell. She got away and she told. She was abused. She went back. She was in a precarious situation. Videotapes. If you don't do this, I'm gonna leak your tape. If you don't do that, here's some money. Money don't fix everything. I think sometimes Diddy gonna have to hold that one.
Yeah. He gonna go to jail for a long time.
This isn't like, if he get away, I don't think people aren't gonna feel the same way they felt about OJ.
Money and power.
True. I'm with you on that one. Yep.
Yeah. No, it is very interesting, because I've heard both sides. I'm not gonna act like this is my first time hearing a perspective like yours. I mean, this is the talk right now, right? Some people are like, well, was I groomed as a kid because I grew up in the inner city and we had a big homie that had us doing wild stuff? And if I was in the back of his car and they robbed a bank, I would still have to do the same amount of time. Right. I couldn't say, hey, I was groomed. And so it is a very interesting discussion that's going on. Is the grooming related to just when it's sexual, or is it also grooming when a child does all these, different things for the community, for a negative, for whoever, for somebody that has them doing these negative things? And so it is a wild discussion that's going on right now. But I'm leaning towards the side of, like, she did want to get away. She tried. She did come back, but he also threatened to sell her tapes and her image and all these things. And trauma is one of those things where it'll mess up your entire existence, your entire being.
I want to discern between consenting adults and children too, because I've heard us like mention both. Like, but in my opinion, like I'm never gonna blame a child the same way that I'm gonna blame a consenting adult.
No doubt.
Because you know, children underdeveloped brains and all that kind of stuff. It's like, nah, the adult is wrong 100% of the time in my opinion. And that's
And Cassie was what, 19 though when it started?
I mean, she was young.
She was an adult.
Like, but but still, I mean, like, but that kind of hurts his case even more, right?
No. No. Prefrontal cortex fully developed 21. Your future thinking. And so 20s are so important. Like so much happens in 20 developmental milestones. Like 18, 19, like it's tough. I wouldn't say that she was just like this. You think you grown, and you heard that one before. You ever heard that one? That was a Black Households one-liner. You think you grown, but it takes time. It takes time to experience life sometimes for a lot of people. And I mean, I can only imagine the ways of the music industry and how.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that. I'm sure
the ways that goes. You go. You don't ask too many questions because you don't want to go in those doors. But
what's that Terrence Howard?
I've listened to what you're saying about the way the brain develops, and I know we got to go, but wouldn't it be nice if those things were taken into consideration when we talk about encounters with police officers by individuals who are within that age range, or just had a conversation with someone, encounters with social services when a mother may not make the best decision for her children, or so on and so forth. I mean, the list keeps going.
Oh, that's good.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's
spot
real
on,
good.
Ms. Max.
I think that's the next episode. We need to get a lawyer.
Next episode.
Yeah, that's good.
None other than Nick Wright of Wright Group Counseling. So, Nick, go ahead and let the folks know how to reach you, man. Like you said, you worldwide. It don't matter where you located. You can reach the people.
So we're Virginia based, 100% virtual. WGC today, but I encourage you to check out cvccn.org as well, just to connect with a Black therapist. My voice, finding a good therapist is like finding a good pair of jeans. Sometimes you got to try a couple pair on before you find the one that just fits for you.
You said cvccn.org?
Central Virginia Clinicians of Color Network. So
I got you.
cvccn.org. I really want to just say thank you all. Maxine, Razor, Charles, it's always a pleasure to be on your show, and I don't take it for granted. And I just want to say thank you.
We appreciate you,
brother. We gotta get together and have some more wings, man.
Hey, keep doing the good work. Keep doing the good work.
Thank you, Nick. We appreciate you. All right, family, we got to go. We're over time, but it was well worth it. Definitely know that you were enlightened today. I mean, you couldn't have been listening if you didn't learn something from today's show. And so we appreciate you. Visit our social media pages, replay these interviews, get as much as you can out of them, help to increase the quality of your life. I'm gonna say bless your life, and I don't want to sound like I'm preaching to you. So
amen. Hey, it's Sunday. I'll take it.
Right.
He said amen.
Yeah, but take care, okay?
All right, thank you all. Have a great day.